The most wanted thing in the world today is Iran's 408 kilograms of enriched uranium. But the big question is, where is it? Trump and his butter squad are not going to tolerate anyone rotating their obliterate rate in the slightest. Israel fought the war for 12 days at a staggering daily cost of $750 million. Just imagine, every sunrise and sunset, $750 million gone into fire, smoke, and rubble. Yet despite this enormous spending, the war could not bring clear results. The first Zionist Prime Minister, Ben Gurion, once made a chilling statement. Old Palestinians will die and children will forget that they ever lived in Palestine. His words were not just an opinion, they became a doctrine, an unwritten policy for Israel. Now, after this 12-day war, which cost Iran nearly $35 billion in losses, a new debate has begun. Can Israel apply the Lebanon model to Iran, just as the United States envisions? How are you, friends? I'm Faisal Waraj. Today we'll unravel the facts behind these questions. You see, a thing becomes more doubtful the more it demands explanation. A fact that is repeated again and again from different angles slowly loses weight and conviction. And this is exactly the challenge facing President Donald Trump and Israel since the night of June 22nd. That night, America carried out Operation Midnight Hammer, a sudden strike on Iran that targeted 3 nuclear sites. It was presented as a decisive blow, but what really happened? America proudly showed the world evidence. 6 impact points on the Fordow enrichment site, the most secure of all Iran's nuclear facilities. Satellite images revealed 6 holes punched into the mountains. Then came aerial photos of Isfahan and Natanz after bombardment. The U.S. declared these were precision strikes, proof that Iran's nuclear capability had been obliterated. But when international media pressed the Pentagon with key questions, there were no clear answers. How much of Iran's nuclear capacity was actually destroyed? Were the 18,000 centrifuges at Natanz and Fordow reduced to rubble? And most importantly, where is the 408 kilograms of enriched uranium, supposedly enough for 6 to 10 bombs? Trump, his Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and the so-called Butter Squad avoided specifics. Their only response was a repetition of one word. Obliterated, obliterated. But repetition does not equal truth. General Don Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, was more cautious. He admitted that damage assessments were still underway and described the outcome as severe damage and destruction. His choice of words was telling, carefully measured, not absolute. Behind the scenes, the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, had already prepared an internal report. Just 2 days later, CNN leaked it. The report contradicted Trump's claims, bluntly stating that the strikes had not been fully successful. Iran's core components had not been destroyed. The nuclear program, it said, could bounce back within months. This leak was a major embarrassment for Washington. And while the U.S. struggled to justify its narrative, Iranian officials began spreading their own version of events. They claimed that before the attacks, they had already removed critical equipment and fissile material from Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. If this is true, then the real crown jewel, the enriched uranium, was never touched. Trump's response was predictable. He lashed out at CNN, NBC, and the New York Times, branding them fake news. Yet, even in his fiery rants, he never gave a straight answer to the most pressing question: where is the enriched uranium? To strengthen its case, the Pentagon later released a video presentation. It showed a B-2 bomber releasing a GBU-57 bunker buster. The footage looked impressive, but it was quickly discovered that it was not from Iran. It was a test video. The bomb penetrated about 10 meters deep, while Fordow is buried somewhere between 300 and 500 meters underground. This raised even more doubts. Had the bombs really reached their target? Natanz and Isfahan, on the other hand, were more vulnerable. Their facilities had large above-ground sections. It is likely they suffered more damage than Fordow. But whether all 11,000 centrifuges at Natanz were completely destroyed, that remains a mystery. So the critical question remains, how far back has Iran's nuclear program actually been pushed? During the war, Iran lost 14 nuclear scientists. It was a painful blow, but not crippling. Iran has thousands of trained scientists. 14 cannot cripple the program. Uranium supply also isn't an issue. The country owns 2 mines and can keep producing ore. However, there was one major setback. The Isfahan facility that converted uranium ore into uranium hexafluoride gas was destroyed. Without this gas, centrifuges cannot enrich uranium. Rebuilding such a facility could take years. This was, without doubt, a serious loss. But despite all this, Iran still possesses those 408 kilograms of enriched uranium. According to the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, the last time it was seen was in Isfahan, just 1 week before the strikes. It was stored in small casks, easily movable by a few trucks. After the attack, no one knows where it went. Possibilities abound. It could have been shifted to Bushehr, where Russian forces have a presence. It could still be hidden in deep underground bunkers in Isfahan, or it may have been dispersed across multiple secret locations. The most logical guess is that Iran moved it before the strikes, anticipating exactly what was coming. Now, let's talk about weaponization. For a nuclear bomb, enriched uranium alone is not enough. Iran needs advanced detonators and neutron generators. A facility near Sanjarian, believed to be involved in this, was reportedly destroyed. But many such facilities exist under the guise of ordinary electric companies. In all likelihood, Iran still retains this capability. Delivery systems? That is no weakness either. Iran already has long-range missiles. Its supply network is intact, even stretching into Yemen through its allies. And with Russia possibly providing cover through the Caspian Sea, Iran's missile capability is far from neutralized. So, what's the real picture? Iran's uranium conversion facility is gone. Some labs may have been destroyed, but Iran still has its enriched uranium, its scientists, its missiles, and, most importantly, its determination to finish the program. Unless the U.S. and Israel carry out repeated, sustained strikes backed by ground operations, the nuclear program will not be rolled back. Israel knows this. That is why it has openly declared an enforcement plan to maintain air superiority over Iran. In plain words, this means an open-ended perpetual war. If Israel succeeds, Iran's government may eventually collapse. If it fails, Israel will face a drawn-out war of attrition. Iran, meanwhile, has warned that any violation of the ceasefire will be met with retaliation. Trump has threatened more strikes if Iran resumes nuclear work. But will America really escalate so quickly? Unlikely, because first, it would have to neutralize Iran's missile threat to U.S. bases in the Gulf. The economic cost of this short war is staggering. Iran lost between 24 and 35 billion, nearly 9% of its GDP. Israel's losses were $11 to $18 billion, about 2 to 3% of its economy. For America, the cost was negligible, at least financially. Politically, however, the costs are rising. And remember, this war is not over. These are only temporary pauses. The core issue is still unresolved: Israel's occupation of Palestine and the genocide in Gaza. The Iran conflict is, in many ways, a smokescreen to continue Israel's long-term project in Palestine. History shows us how deep these strategies run. Ben Gurion once wrote to his son that Palestinians should be expelled so that their children would forget their homeland. That dream remains at the heart of Israeli policy: deny the right of return, erase the memory of Palestine. But history has its own logic. Just as Zionists never forgot their claim to a 3,000-year-old land, Palestinians will not forget their 70 years of documented struggle. Iran's anger toward America also has deep roots. It began in the 1950s, when Prime Minister Mossadegh, who dared to nationalize Iran's oil, was overthrown with America's help. The Shah was installed, and Iran's resources were looted. Since then, chants of death to America have echoed across Iran. Politically unwise, perhaps, but historically deeply rooted. So friends, Iran has suffered major losses, no doubt, but with Russia and China's support, and with its own resilience, it has not been broken. The enriched uranium remains the biggest mystery. And one thing is certain. This story is not ending here. The next round of this war is inevitable.